Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking Hugh for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two Hugh Grant enthusiasts watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question: is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite, and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant obsessive, Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how the hell are you doing, mate?
I'm doing great, Diggs. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you, Oscar.
Looks like you've had a fantastic Christmas, judging by what you're wearing.
I have had a fantastic Christmas. When I joined this call with you, Oscar, I had a Hugh Grant mask on my face, which is half of Hugh Grant's face as a mask.
That's got to be the best Christmas present you received this year.
It's a close second to the T-shirt that I'm wearing, which is what can only be described as a collage of different Hugh Grant faces. It is the most beautiful thing I've ever received in my entire life, and it's from Oscar. Thank you so much, Oscar. I also received I'd say about a foot, maybe a foot and a half tall Hugh Grant cutout from my sister's boyfriend. So I will be having that in the background of any future videos we do.
You and Megan are going to get along then, since she married a Hugh Grant cutout.
Yes, she did. If you guys didn't hear that, go back and listen to our Christmas episode, Love Actually, the Christmas special. Megan, one of our listeners, by an ordained minister, is now technically married to a cardboard cutout of Hugh Grant. I'm insanely jealous, is all I can say. But I've got one now, so that's step one done. Now I just need to find an ordained minister, and then we're off.
Yeah.
How about your Christmas? How was it?
Very good, very good. I haven't received any Hugh Grant related presents yet, though. But
what?
It's very sad. I'm fingers crossed that I might do. This is a bit sad. But my Christmas present from my parents, I haven't received any from them yet. I'm on the other side of the world, and the package didn't arrive. It still hasn't arrived. So perhaps there's some Hugh Grant related stuff in there, but it remains to be seen.
Oh no. Well, fingers crossed, because my mum, she was like, you know you're going to receive Hugh Grant stuff for the rest of your life. Because already my family have just been like, oh brilliant, well he loves Hugh Grant. That's all we need to get him.
Yeah, easy presents.
Exactly, but to be honest, I don't mind that at all. I love it. More Hugh Grant stuff, the better.
We're gonna choose our favorite clips from 2020. It's Taking You for Granted best stuff 2020. 2020.
So, on today's episode, we want to take you through how a usual episode goes and choose some of our favourite bits from our episodes so far along the way. At the beginning of our episodes, we usually give a bit of background to the film. When it came out, what the reception was like, whether it won any Oscars, stuff like that. Sometimes we like to read some reviews of the film we found to get us in the mood, which is exactly what we did for Hugh's film, The Bengali Night, which released in 1988. Have a listen.
I mean, I think we should just head into some of those reviews that we read online straight away, just to give people an overview of what they're going to get into.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is probably not going to be a film where we give glowing reviews, even to Hugh. Unfortunately, I don't. Like we were saying, I don't want to sit here bashing him, but it's a pretty mediocre film. I'm going to start off with the only positive review I could find online. So I was scrolling through Amazon. And this person says, the dialogue is so profound that you'll find yourself backing up the disc now and then to hear the imparted words of wisdom again. Add to this wonderful script the exotic urban landscape of India and the near hypnotic soundtrack. You'll find yourself lost in a world of images. This is a true hidden cinematic gem waiting to be discovered.
I think you've read out a review for a completely different film. We're talking about the Bengali Night. There's no chance that had any sort of good plot or hypnotic sense about it, because it was a bag of shite. So if you could next time, Oscar, I'm really glad that you went to try and find some reviews. But let's make sure they're of the film that we're watching. I don't know what they were smoking, to be honest.
Oh, I know what they were smoking, because this is another review from another Amazon buyer who unfortunately spent their good money on this film. I found this film to be a conglomeration of eccentric characters poorly portrayed. The editor must have been on drugs.
There we go, they were smoking drugs.
Another person says, horrible, one of the worst movies ever. Plotline is stupid, quality is poor, description is misleading. I rented this movie because it starred Hugh Grant. Good lad.
Wait.
Even Hugh couldn't save it. Even Hugh couldn't save
No.
it. If I could give it 0 out of stars, I would. Don't waste your money. Did you find any reviews? You looked on YouTube, is that right, Diggs?
The full film is on YouTube, and we have one review here. Bogus. Flop, flop, flop. So that's quite a good review. What a dreadful film. I love the fact that in that episode as well, we both admit that we upped the speed at which we watched it.
I think this probably was the worst Hugh Grant film we watched so far. And to be fair, the listeners reflect that, because I think it's our least listened to episode.
Yeah.
It is a good episode, though. I would encourage people to go back and have a listen. I mean, he puts on a bit of an accent in that one as well. He speaks French, but yeah, it's not one to be remembered, I have to say.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But in the best of 2020, it's there right at the start, so it can only get better from here. So, listeners, if you haven't heard it before, after we've had a bit of chat at the beginning, we then have a synopsis of the film from Synopsis Simon, who people say has a very lovely, soothing voice. I think this synopsis of Notting Hill for our Valentine's Day episode was very soothing indeed, especially with the background music as well. So let's have a listen.
Notting Hill, directed by Roger Michell and released in 1999. William Thacker, played by Hugh Grant, is a bookseller at a shop in the Notting Hill district of West London. When world-famous superstar actress Anna Scott, played by Julia Roberts, walks into his shop, an unlikely relationship starts to take shape. But Anna's notoriety, fame, and actor-boyfriend lead William to question, can the most famous film star in the world really fall for just an ordinary guy? Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
What a soothing voice that Synopsis
Yes.
Simon has. It's almost like you work for the BBC or something.
Yeah.
So after the synopsis, it's down to business, and we almost always discuss Hugh Grant, don't we, Diggs? I mean, naturally, it is a Hugh Grant podcast.
Yeah, it should be the first thing we talk about in the meat of the podcast section. It is.
And yeah, so you'd hope it would be a deep dive into his character and the fine art of his acting, but usually it's just about how fit he looks, isn't it, Diggs? Like in The Remains of the Day, which was a cracking episode.
Certainly was. Let's hear a clip of it now.
I thought that Hugh was looking incredibly dashing in this film. What did you think?
I have to say, I do not share those sentiments.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I thought he looked great in this film.
Do you think?
Okay, we're going to butt heads immediately.
Yeah, I
here.
love this though. I love it when we butt heads. It's like when my parents fight, and I'm like, but like I'm not so sad. And it doesn't end in divorce. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
Anyway, so for those of you who haven't seen the film, Hugh has a sort of slicked back hair look, and I believe this is the 7th film that we've watched where he has some form of ridiculously posh clothing on. So we've got 4 Weddings, Lair of the White Worm, White Mischief, Morris, Sense and Sensibility, Impromptu, and now here.
Yeah.
But I actually think in all those films where he's wearing those kind of clothes, I think he looks best here. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think he looks great. The slick back hair works really well for me, and I don't know what I wrote this in my notes. He has a very pointy nose in this film.
Do you know what? That is the strangest and most accurate thing that you've said so far today. I know we've only been talking for like 5 minutes, but like honestly, you're absolutely right. Now that you pointed that out, You're absolutely right. He has a very pointy nose in this film. And it's the hair, I think, that brings that out. It's the slick back hair, I reckon.
I mean, he has a similar look to what he has in Morris when he has the moustache.
Yeah.
Obviously, the moustache is terrible, so that didn't look good.
No.
But I was liking him more to a sort of 1960s James Bond here than anything else. But
Oh, my word.
what was it that didn't do it for you then?
Do you know what? I think it is the hair. I think if the hair just had a little bit more volume, I would have loved the look. What I like about that clip is that we don't agree, and I love it when we disagree because like it inspires such a debate. We did the same in one of my favourite episodes, Sense and Sensibility, where we butted heads a bit. I love all that.
We did, and yeah, in fact, I mean, that was such a good episode as well. I had a message from my godmother saying that she nearly crashed her car when I said that. I didn't like. I think I compared Sense and Sensibility to Downton Abbey and said how much I hate both of them.
Oh dear.
And she sent me a message saying you nearly made me crash in the Dartford tunnel. So apologies to my godmother. I'm glad she's still alive and glad she's listening to the podcast.
My word, well, we're going to hear some of that Sense and Sensibility episode later on, so stay tuned for that. But partway through 2020, we released our first Hugh's News episode, which was designed to keep you guys up to date with all news regarding Hugh Grant. So we discussed his announcement to star in HBO's The Undoing, and we reviewed each episode of it as they came out. And here is Oscar and I discussing our thoughts on Hugh's character in episode 1. The show is Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman play a married couple. And Nicole Kidman is a seemingly very successful therapist. And Hugh Grant is seemingly the nicest bloke ever. He is literally a children's cancer doctor who hates the posh and the rich and loves his wife and swears in front of his child in a sort of jokey, fun way. What do you think about his character?
Well, yeah, he's seemingly definitely embraced the sort of dad role now, very much so. But like you said, he seems to be a loving father, a kind of adoring husband, and doesn't take himself too seriously, is willing to sort of, very much aware of the bubble that he's in, which is this very kind of rich, white, upper class New York bubble, but he's willing to sort of poke fun at it, as we see at that party scene. But yeah, no, at the moment, we are given the impression that he's sort of squeaky clean and perfect up until probably about halfway through the episode where the seed is sort of planted.
Well, actually, I funnily enough, I think what's good about the program is I was sat there going, I don't think I like everything about his character. I'll list off the things I don't like about Hugh Grant's character. He doesn't want to go to the fundraiser that his wife's put on. He drags his feet. He gets irritable with his kid when his kid's just making the, thing like that. He's grumpy all the time. But the things I do like about Hugh's character is it's played by Hugh Grant. So those things sort of balance each other out quite well.
I mean, Diggs, 2020. We said this before. It's been a tough year for many people, but it certainly has not been a tough year for the Taking Hugh for Granted podcast, and it's been a great year for Hugh Grant content.
Certainly has. We were absolutely blessed with The Undoing.
I mean, I think I was at my wit's end in about October with all this COVID bullshit, but The Undoing certainly kept me going through those autumn months, and yeah, I think it kept a lot of people going. It broke the internet, basically.
Yeah, everyone bloody loved it. And I'm so glad for Hugh and the team because it got people talking, got us talking we did like 5 episodes on it, I think.
I know, we did. And so normally, we talk about Hugh's look and character, but we also discuss his performance in each film. And one of my favourite moments of the last year has to be watching Hugh Grant in Impromptu. I think it's from 1991. It is one of Hugh's all-time best performances. Let's have a listen.
So he plays Frédéric Chopin, although who I believe is Polish.
He is Polish, but spent most of his time in France.
Right, but that doesn't explain why Hugh Grant does an Italian accent. He sounds like Gino D'Acampo. People know him from the video on YouTube where he goes, "If my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike."
That's absolutely spot on. Like I couldn't place where his accent was from.
Yeah,
But-
Polish. I watched a couple of videos on it afterwards. How to do a Polish accent? It's not, people think it's stereotypical Russian. It's not. But obviously it's tinged of that. But this, look, I'm doing a bad Eastern European accent. Yes, this is sort of Ukraine, sort of area. Yes, probably a bit racist. Whatever, right? That is what you should. I'm not an actor, but that's what you should maybe be going for. However, you had this from. He said, "What are you doing? Get out of my chambers. I am Chopin. I'm meant to be playing a piano." See, like, what is going? I don't know what is going on with it.
So the Countess d'Agout is making advances to you?
She is my friend's mistress. She has borne his child.
I don't think he'd mind if she changed hands.
Really, I don't understand the attitude of you people. Are we at a livestock sale? She's a woman, not a goat.
What an accent, and what an absolutely mad film. It's crazy. But I think a lot of people love it. Mary, super fan, Mary Frangie, absolutely loves it. She said it was one of her favourite Hugh Grant films, and, she's an expert on Hugh Grant, so if she likes it, it's fair enough.
Well, I think it must have been quite a big film as well, because when we spoke to Patrick Flynn from What Is Love Actually podcast for our Christmas special, he said that Impromptu was the first time he saw Hugh Grant too. Wow. So it's not necessarily a film that's gone down as a classic, but certainly was on the radar for a lot of people. I mean, if you haven't watched it, Hugh has one of his best hairdos in this. He's got a sort of shoulder-length hair, and he puts on an absolutely shocking accent.
I know. I mean, look, Hugh, you are brilliant. You are great in everything, but not so much an Impromptu, mate. I'm so sorry. But also through this year, we did a question and answer episode with you guys for our 10th episode. And funny enough, that was the one where we spoke to Mary Frangie, our super fan. And amongst the questions, some of the feedback we got was from you guys was that you really liked how we weren't just doing the big Hugh Grant classics like Notting Hill, Love Actually, Bridget Jones, but also some of his hidden early gems too, like White Mischief.
Okay, just as a precursor to our audience, Hugh Grant literally has about 5 lines in this entire film.
Oscar, I've counted. By my calculation, he has 8 lines in the film.
But they all come at the beginning, so you're kind of like, oh, Hugh Grant's going to be the main act.
Yeah, legit. It's Hugh Grant. He was the 12th name on the billing at the beginning, and he was on screen for 1 minute and 27 seconds by my calculation. So if you're looking for a classic Hugh Grant film, this is the one to go for because it's wrapped up nice and quick. You get Hugh, you get out. Like, it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You literally have to be there for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But, okay, so he has 8 lines. Obviously, my favourite of them is she says something like, oh, all the tigers in Africa. And he's like, ostriches, baboons, hyenas.
Hyenas. And the way he says hyenas, he's like, hyenas. Hyenas.
There are no tigers in Africa.
Aren't there? What are they then?
Ostriches, baboons, hyenas.
Well, here's to all of them. And respectability.
So the film opens and the guy's talking about, he says, he's riding on his horse and he says to the man who's marrying this girl that he's with, he says, "Morning, sir. Sorry about your lawn." And then it cuts to the title. So we don't know what happened to the lawn. We don't know what the problem was with the lawn. Hugh Grant's first line in this film is completely pointless.
Morning, Jock.
How was the ride?
Oh, it was marvellous.
Morning, sir. Very sorry about your lawn.
Oh, don't worry.
I have to say, obviously, as you do, you're doing thorough research into this film. And, I wrote down the line and was thinking, okay, when's this going to circle back to the lawn? And it never circles back.
It never circles back. And to be honest, I think that's a big issue with the film. For me, it's a huge issue with the film. I think the film was a mystery. And the whole time I wasn't thinking, oh, who killed blah, blah. I thought, what happened to the lawn? What was wrong with the lawn? We never find out.
I know.
Not to spoil it for everyone, but it's kind of rubbish. So Lawngate continues.
Lawngate. We still don't know what's wrong with that bloody lawn, do we, Diggs?
Now that could be the biggest outrage of 2020. That could be the biggest outrage of 2020. Yeah.
The thing that the one disappointment that I've had from this year of the podcast is that we haven't kept up going through our drinking game about every time you see an estate in a Hugh Grant film that you have to down a drink or something, because we missed out on that. I mean, Sense and Sensibility, that's basically just one big
country
mansion.
house.
You'd be drinking all the way through that film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got plastered.
In that Q&A episode, we did have a question from a listener who asked us, in reference to our theme song, how Diggory and I met. Let's have a listen.
We have a question here from Aidan Selwood on Instagram, and Aidan asked, "Did you two actually meet at a Hugh Grant themed event?"
Well, I don't know whether we should give the honest answer here, Diggory. What do you think?
Well, the honest answer is, of course, we met at a Hugh Grant themed event. That it would be heinous of us to have lied to our listeners. Of course. So at the University of Bristol, there was a Hugh Grant themed event, and as we say, there were two people there, or at least it felt like that.
I swear you were dressed as Doctor Who.
Was that a thing? Was it a dress up thing?
No,
Christ, just for the fun of it.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
or maybe you weren't
God.
dressing up.
Oh God! Oh dear! Oh dear! Okay, that's
Maybe I
fine.
just thought you looked like Doctor Who.
And you thought that I liked that I basically shaped myself on Doctor Who. It's just I want to go back to university and redo the whole thing. So what I'm trying to say is, guys, is we were two very, very cool big names on campus back in Bristol.
Huge names on campus.
Yeah, mate. I mean, you couldn't bloody move for thinking about us.
And here we are, 2 or 3 years later, making a podcast about Hugh Grant. So, dreams and aspirations for all you out there.
There you go, Bristol University, big up, big up.
Add onto the Wikipedia page of Bristol University alumni, Oscar Beardmore Grey Diggory Waite met at University of Bristol Hugh Grant event.
Hugh Grant event, and it had a total of 2 people turned up, even though way more said that they would come on the event. Way more said they'd come, and it was only me and you, and I'm glad it was only me and you, because we've stuck it out and we're here right now. Fantastic. We also talked in that Q&A episode about characters we'd wished Hugh Grant had played, and since then we've kept on doing that. We really enjoy doing that now, talking about films we wish he'd been in, like Joker and James Bond, Jason Bourne, but we also talked about it in music and lyrics. Hugh Grant is his own. He's an artist now on on Spotify, and he said it aroused him to know that now he's considered technically is a pop star.
Mate, and he's got 32 million plays on his top song. So that's my real question is why he wasn't chosen for A Star Is Born and put in Bradley Cooper's role, because I think he would have absolutely smashed that.
Oh my god, that would have been absolutely incredible. That would have been it's like that bit when he's like, "Hey," and then Lady Gaga turns around, she's like, "What?" And he's like, "I just want to get another look at you." But it'd be like, "Hey," and she's like, "What?" He's like, "I just wanted to catch another look at you. Sorry, you're absolutely enchanting. Off you go."
What differs this film from many of other rom-coms that we see, and of course Hugh's rom-coms up to this point, is the fact that we get to see his musical and dancing ability. And maybe we should start with the music, which I have to say is a lot better than people give him credit for. This is not an easy role to fulfill. I know he says in interviews and stuff that, auto-tune can make you sound brilliant, and he has no respect for the music industry now that he knows that you can literally just put voice tune. I mean, the D-Dogs album is... if you haven't listened to Diggory's own musical work, he is the D-Dog. Go and search it up on Spotify, you won't be disappointed. But Diggs, what did you think about... his singing and sort of piano playing and guitar playing in this film?
I mean, I was completely blown away. When you watch a lot of these films and they're singing in it, you'll see them singing, you'll see them lip syncing, and they'll get someone else to sing the parts for them and stuff. And there was I was listening in, and I was like, hang on a minute, that's all diegetic, that's all Hugh. Like, Hugh's doing all of that. And I was so impressed. And so as soon as the film ended, I went and searched it up to see whether he sung all of his own bits. And he did. And I was so impressed with... He sounded brilliant. I loved his voice. It was... To be fair, speaking of A Star Is Born, it kind of reminded me of Bradley Cooper. I was like, blimey, mate, you've got some lungs on you. I had no idea.
I just want to say, Diggs, right here, that Music and Lyrics is my favourite Hugh Grant film. It is.
Is it?
It is.
I
think it is. Yeah.
No way. I love that.
For me, it marks the point where Hugh Grant stops taking himself so seriously. I don't think he did actually up to that point, but it's that point where he's like, look, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to put myself out there for a bit of fun. And he pulls it off.
And he does. And it's actually, that's so true. And it's a marriage of that sort of like new age, take the piss out of myself, Hugh, and like rom-com Hugh, and they sort of marry quite nicely there. I think that's another episode where we disagree, because you're very pro musical lyrics and I think I was a little bit anti it.
You were quite anti. I don't like that at all.
But it's hard for me to be anti it when I hear your fantastic rendition of Way Back Into Love, which I had to include in my favourite bits of 2020 for the podcast, because we do lots of jingles on the pod, but that has to be up there as one of the best, if not the best. It's so good.
Way Back Into Love, Oscar's version, take 1. Oh crap, Hugh, I'm getting so nervous. You'll be fine, just use your normal nice voice I've heard so much of in the last 3 days. So will you come on our podcast if I sing this song with you? No. Well, that's awkward. Anyway. I was living with this anger in my head. I was sleeping with this passion in my bed. He's been slandered for so long. So we started this pod so the haters can jog on. I've been hiding all my hopes and dreams away, just in case we get you on the pod someday. Fans have wondered for some time how you haven't won an Oscar's a scandal in our minds. All I wanna Hugh is find a way back into love. I can't make it Hugh without a way back into love.
Come on the podcast, Hugh.
I've been tweeting at you almost every day, but you haven't seemed to seem to my dismay. I know that you're out there. One day we'll chat to you someplace, somewhere. All I wanna do is find a way back into love. I can make it Hugh without a way back into love. Talking of sing-songs, there was a very special event this year, probably the biggest event of 2020, perhaps the biggest moment of the 2020s so far, and that was Mr. Hugh John Mungo Grant turning 60, and we had a very special Hugh's News episode to commemorate that moment.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hugh Grant. Happy birthday, dear Hugh. Hooray!
Happy birthday, Hugh.
Happy birthday to Hugh Grant. That was potentially the worst sing-song of a happy birthday ever in the history of ever. Because unfortunately, once again, despite Oscar being in the country, we are still not together, unfortunately. And thus, we're out of time. The happy birthdays are all over the place. And though that didn't sound very sincere, our best wishes are as sincere as they can be, because today is Hugh Grant's birthday, Oscar.
It's a huge day, and it's not only just his birthday, it's his 60th birthday. He's entering his 7th decade. It's a huge moment.
September the 9th, 1960, we were graced with Hugh John Mungo Grant.
What a great day that was. Diggs, I mean, what are your memories?
Well, I obviously went down to Fulham to go and find him with my Colin the Caterpillar cake, and I was shouting amongst the streets, Hugh! Happy birthday, Hugh! Come out and have some cake! And yeah, I was arrested. I did spend the night in the cell.
Good job you didn't have that shirt on at the time. They might have taken you down to a sort of a mental asylum at that point.
Well, they did threaten they'd do exactly that if I did it again next year. So I've got to really think about how I'm going to weasel my way out of that one.
Well, we finished 2020 with a very special Christmas episode where we interviewed Chris Orr from The Atlantic and also Beth and Patrick from the What Is Love Actually podcast for our Love Actually Christmas special, which I still can't believe exists as a podcast, to be honest.
I know, it's incredible. It's like we have a pointless podcast, and there's other pointless podcasts out there.
Perhaps more pointless podcasts than our podcast.
Well, let's have a listen.
I want your honest assessment of Hugh Grant in this movie, and then your honest opinions on Hugh Grant as a whole.
Oh.
As a person.
As a person, or hang on. As a person, or wait a minute. Like,
as an actor.
Okay,
Let's stick to
that's
actor.
better.
Maybe let's ask 3 questions in the film as an actor and as a person. Let's just defame his character as well.
Do we? Yeah. Well, so it's funny. So I listened to your guys' episodes on several of a lot of your episodes in your back catalog, but specifically this one in preparation for this conversation. And I have to say, I kind of agree. I think where you guys landed on that, though, now I might be mixing this up with I listened to a lot of episodes of your show yesterday.
Wow, thank you.
Yes. You're the one. We found the listener. We found it.
But so you decided that Love Actually does take Hugh for granted, correct?
I think so. I can't actually remember. I was really hungover that day when we recorded that.
I think and I think you're right. I think I love him in this movie, but the movie, not only for Hugh Grant, but also for Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, like almost all the actors, it really depends on the audience loving the performer to make the storyline work. And because it's Hugh Grant and Martine McCutcheon, that storyline works. If you put 2 less charismatic actors in that scene with those exact same lines shot the same way, it could feel bad. It could feel very bad. As we what do we speculate? It's Willem Dafoe and who did we recap? Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich.
Malkovich.
We put John Malkovich. Like, it wouldn't be the same movie.
No.
No, it's a very different movie.
Very different movie. And I really want to see it, but you know.
Yeah, don't you? A little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, it's called The Lighthouse, I think. But yeah, I think he's great and absolutely great.
I agree. I think that he's incredibly charming, but I also think there's a little bit of like, we're going to cast Hugh Grant as Hugh Grant, and he's going to be floppy haired and funny and silly and dance around, and then he's going to stand up for us at one point and make us all proud, and we're going to be really excited about it. But I mean, you can't he doesn't do anything. The character doesn't do anything in this film to make you like not want to root for him. So he's already charming to begin with. I'm on board.
One thing, I mean, you guys, we will invite you back. That is exactly the answers we wanted. Well done. But one thing,
We passed. We did it.
because we had another guest on who was like, "Yeah, Hugh Grant, he was all right." And we were like, "Get out! Do you not
Get out.
understand
Yes, you're done.
what
Right.
this is?
What show you're on?"
Yeah,
The whole point of this.
Yeah. There's been a whole lot of Hugh Grant chat up to now, and usually that is the case. I mean, obviously it makes sense in a Hugh Grant podcast, but one clip we did want to get in there is the clip of us just talking about a movie and a scene which doesn't feature Hugh all that much. And what better scene than that Boy Scout scene from The Lair of the White Worm? Still probably my favourite Hugh Grant film we've seen so far. Yours obviously may well be music and lyrics, but Lair of the White Worm is the weirdest film ever. Lady Sylvia is driving home with the head of this snake, this like bone head of the snake, in a car.
Yeah, I'm just covering my hands because I just remembered what we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's just the weird thing about this bit as well is that it has absolutely no bearing on the ending of the film. It's like the producers have just decided we would like to make this really weird.
Yeah, exactly. This is meant. There's just no. You're so right. This has no bearing on the rest of it. It's brilliant. So there is a young man who is hitchhiking, and she pulls up beside him, and he's like, hello, Mrs. Can you take me to the youth hostel, please? And she's like, oh, it's raining. You'll catch a cold. Get in my car. And then whilst they're driving, she's talking about her music, and he's like, oh, I don't like this banging. She was like, do you like any kind of banging? And it goes from there, basically.
And then pulls up her skirt, and you can see she's wearing like fishnets.
Yeah. Oh,
and you're like,
God.
oh. Okay, Okay, and then I'll summarize to the audience like the shocking scene that happens next. So that they go back to her house, and she's like, what did she say? She's like, the fun's only just starting or something.
Yeah.
And then they're playing Snakes and Ladders again. The weird snaky theme continues, and then they go for a bath.
Yeah. Oh god. Oh god.
And she and throughout all this, she's like wearing like literally like just
next to nothing.
Yeah, literally next to nothing, which is also out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
She takes his clothes off, asks him to stand up in the bath, then goes downstairs, and then...
My, you are a fine growing boy.
Out the fangs come, and she bites his dick off. And that's basically the last we see of him. And do you know what's really disturbing about this, Oscar, is like when we are trying to look for a little bit of insider info, when we're editing these, we like to, Oscar had the fantastic idea, and we put in little clips from the films. On YouTube is often the best way to get those. I went on YouTube, typed in this film. You can't find many other scenes. You find lots of trailers. The one scene about 1,000 people have uploaded is this scene. Is the scene with the boy. And I must tell you now, Oscar, the comments are disgusting. They are absolutely filthy.
Have you got some?
YouTube user Stuart Lynch said, I remember my parents having this on VHS when I was about 12. I would always sneak it on when they weren't home, just for this very scene. User Don Franco says, I was in the Scouts, and I never remembered it being this good. Jason Bardell says, that's my fancy, being seduced by a sexy MILF. Oh well, I can carry on dreaming. User Blackpill agrees, simply commenting, classy, English, MILF. And Attila709 says, saw this movie years ago, and all I can remember is how sexy this woman was. Love to taste all of her nasties. Smiley face.
Oh god, the internet is a twisted place, isn't it? Honestly, there's probably someone who's like uploaded that to Pornhub or something.
Big time.
This is for those weird people who get off on this shit, don't they?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly. And I can't recommend the film enough for them.
Yeah, if you're listening in, this is the one for you. Diggs, I have to say, the Lair, the White Worm, it's a close second for me. It really is.
It's so good.
It's vintage. It's vintage Grant. Some of the worst CGI in living memory. If you haven't seen this film, you've got to go watch it. It's got Peter Capaldi in it as well.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting one for you. Dr. Hugh.
Dr. Hugh. That's another person he should be. Dr. Hugh.
Anyway, we close out every episode by asking one another, of course, has this film been taking Hugh for granted? Is it good on its own, or does it rely on Hugh Grant being in it? I actually got a message the other day, Diggs, on Christmas Day, actually, from another one of my godmothers, who are both very keen fans of the podcast. So thank you, both of them. Trying to ask me, I think it's difficult for us to explain what the definition of is the film being taken Hugh for granted. And I don't know whether we can sum it up to fans quickly just to sort of set the record straight.
It's tough because I think even in this next clip you're about to hear, I sort of give two answers to it as well, because there's a few ways of looking at it. But I think for the most part, the general rule is this. Hugh Grant is brilliant and fantastic. Any film that he's in is good as a result. But would the film be good on its own without Hugh Grant, or does it rely on him to make it good? Is the film taking Hugh for granted? If it is taking Hugh for granted, that means it's shit. If it's not taking Hugh for granted, that means it's good stuff. I think that's right. Even if it isn't, that's what we've got to work with, people. And that's what we've been saying for 28 episodes. So we've got to keep it that way.
I mean, that was said like a true scholar who knows his work back to front. I mean, that was class.
Tell your godmothers that. Let's hear that clip now. One of my favourite conclusions was Sense and Sensibility, like I said earlier, in which Oscar, you went off on one about how much you hated period pieces, as you say. Let's take a listen.
Taking Hugh for granted. Taking Hugh for granted. Taking Hugh for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking Hugh for granted?
We were dreading doing this film. Let's be honest. We were both dreading it.
We were.
I do not like period pieces that are, stiff upper lip and, really like, curtsy and stuff. That sort of stuff bores the hell out of me, and I just can't get into it. However, this film, and particularly Emma Thompson's screenplay, is so quick. It's so funny. It really takes the piss out of itself.
Look, Diggs, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm not going to pretend. In previous films with Hugh, there's been a couple of episodes where I've maybe pretended, because it's Hugh, not pretended, but forced myself to like the film. I'm just going to say it. I don't like this film. I thought it was shit.
Oh my word!
And I know,
really?
Look, guys, I know there's so many of you out there who love the whole period thing. You love the Downton Abbey bullshit. I don't, okay? I'm sorry, it's crap, it's boring.
Oh no.
This is 2 hours, 15 minutes where I just wanted to fall asleep, honestly.
No, Oscar, no. That's so sad, dude.
Look, this film is taking Hugh for granted. Look, guys, period pieces are just not my thing. I am vowing never to watch another one ever again after watching all of Hugh Grant's period pieces, because I've wasted like 10 hours of my life watching them now.
Dear.
I don't love the whole period thing. Hugh, not bad. Brings some element of fun and wittiness to the role he's playing. So I like that. And Emma Thompson, full marks, brilliant screenplay, about as good as it gets for Jane Austen, and she also smashes out of the park with her acting. So
exactly,
that's what I will say. Diggory.
Funnily enough, I'm very torn on this one, because is this film because obviously I'm naturally going to say this film isn't taking Hugh for granted because it's a great film. However, is this film taking Hugh for granted? Yes. The guy's only in it for fucking 20 minutes. I mean, it's a joke. They are taking him for granted in that sense. So take this as a half and half. Are they taking Hugh for granted? The filmmakers are. The film is, yes. However, is the film good? And if we're viewing it in that sense, it is. I think it's brilliant. It's a punchy, quick, great script that's funny and witty and modern. It's got direction to match and a great cast. Great acting, as you say, with a standout performance from Emma Thompson. Great performance as well from Severus Snape. And Hugh as well is the cherry on top. So I will say, to add a bit of balance to it, I'll say this film is not taking Hugh for granted. But I want people to know out there that it kind of is as well.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that we got that one over with, Diggs. We were dreading it, but it looks like we enjoyed it in the end.
You know what? Sometimes going into a film with no expectations is one thing. Going into it with bad expectations, and often is a great way to go into a film. I was dreading it, and I could not have been happier. I loved this film. I think halfway through it, I was going, this might be the best film I've ever seen in my entire life. I loved it. You can tell how much of a good mood I
can't believe this. This is honestly shocking.
I thought it was so good. It was so funny. So there you have it. Those are our best clips from 2020. Well, just a little selection. And hopefully, if you're new to the podcast, you have a decent idea of how an episode goes. You had the intro, you had the synopsis Simon, you had chat about Hugh, you had chat about the film, you had the wrap up at the end. That's just how an episode goes. So if you like what you hear, do go check out some of these other episodes.
Yeah, definitely go and check them out. And we've got a lot lined up for 2021. And Diggs, just as we thought that Hugh Grant might not be returning to our screens for a while, he's popped out of nowhere again with some new stuff.
He's completely taken us off guard. Like I as soon as we released our Christmas episode, I heard straight away rumblings of this Charlie Brooker documentary on Netflix, and I thought, oh, okay, that'll be a while down the line. It's released! It released like 3 days ago. What the hell? So he's completely caught us off guard. We will be playing catch up, but we will be releasing that next. So it will look a bit weird. This will be the best of 2020 episode, and literally the next episode we release we call Death to 2020.
I mean, have you seen the trailer yet? I watched it last night, and it looks like Hugh Grant has gone back to a similar look to what some of his characters in Cloud Atlas.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
He looks like he's got some fake hair. He's got glasses. Got
Yeah.
a tweed jacket on. So it's going to be very intriguing. I mean, he's got some big stars in that. Samuel L. Jackson, which I don't think he starred with Samuel L. Jackson before. So that's quite exciting.
I think so. Yeah, that's very exciting. We love it when he stars with new big boys.
Yeah, and I'm sure every time he does, he just puts another foot into the Hollywood Hall of Fame, you know? Because there's probably some people who haven't worked with him before. It's like, oh, Hugh Grant, Notting Hill. And then they work with him and they realise what a bloody genius he is.
Exactly. Couldn't put it better myself. One thing I will say is the reviews so far haven't been hot.
Yikes.
They've been taking shots at it, but I know that's at the thing as a whole, but I'm sure Hugh is the best thing about it. And we will review it next.
And there's one other thing we should mention is that, I mean, it's like dropping bombs left, right, and centre. If you are listening to this still in the Christmas season, Hugh Grant is voicing the Christmas Carol audiobook, which you can now download on various platforms. And I have to say, I haven't listened to it, but I've heard good things. And Hugh Grant actually, he tweeted it out. He actually tweeted, don't normally tweet stuff about my work. And he is someone who doesn't ever tweet about his films or whatever, but said he enjoyed doing it. So that could be another little thing to look out for in 2021. We did say that he might do more voice acting, voice stuff.
Yeah.
So who knows? Did he have a chance to listen?
I didn't, but you know what? We were thinking of doing Love Actually every year as our Christmas episode, but maybe next year, now he's done A Christmas Carol, we can't really look anywhere else. But how do you review an audiobook? How would we do that? It just wouldn't be the same. We couldn't talk about how hot Hugh Grant is.
No, but his voice is sexy too.
That's true.
I reckon Hugh Grant is a big Dickens fan, you know, he's a bit of a traditionalist in that way.
I thought you were going to say something else then. I was like, Oscar, we're meant to be pro Hugh Grant on this podcast. Fantastic. Well, look, as you say, so much to look forward to in 2021. One thing I will say is, listeners, if you've been listening for a little while, I've got a New Year's resolution for you, which is, if you like the podcast, if you like what we're doing, just share it. Share it with one person. If it's a mate of yours, you're like, oh, we've got a similar sense of humour, or anything like that, just share it. That is the best way we're going to get the word of Hugh out there. God, I sound preachy now, but that
you sound like you're a part of a cult, Diggory.
And I am. Let's be real, I really am. So yeah, if you could share it, it would help us out massively, and we'd really, really appreciate it.
And you know, some of you have done that already for us, and we're incredibly grateful. In fact, we are about to hit a major milestone coming up, Diggs, and that is 10,000 downloads, which is very exciting. Yeah. And so thank you to every single one of you who have taken the opportunity to click download and listen to us on the radio, the Hugh Grant Show.
You all get a badge saying, I have not taken Hugh for granted. You absolutely have not. You guys know what you're up to. And hey, if you do share it, you can point them to this episode, because these are some good bits in here. And also, they get a general vibe of how the show goes. And they might think, ooh, I like that little clip from Sense and Sensibility. Maybe I'll go and check that out.
Exactly. And Diggs, I think we should find a way of getting these Hugh Grant masks in circulation somehow. We did talk about this back earlier in the pandemic. Where can I get my hands on one of these things?
Redbubble.com. But also, maybe we should set up our own store account. I'll finally give in to those adverts that you hear on podcasts, and I'll get Wix.com or Squarespace. I'll make a website. I'll sell Hugh Grant masks. And we'll not only be Hugh Grant fans, we'll be rich Hugh Grant fans.
Exactly.
Right, guys. Follow us on the socials, at Taking Hugh on Twitter, at Taking Hugh for Granted on Facebook and Instagram. If you're not following us or subscribed, click that subscribe button right now. Follow us everywhere. We love you. We appreciate you. I cannot wait for 2021 and what Hugh's got in store. Can you, Oscar?
Can't wait, Diggs. It's going to be epic. And hopefully we'll be back in the cinema to watch him.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Wow, what a prospect. Fantastic. Right, I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, see you next year. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited, and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.